Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Caroline Holt. Caroline is a second-year student in our Executive MBA class of 2026, and she and I recently connected to talk more about her background, her decision to pursue an MBA, her adjustment to life as a Darden student, what she's enjoyed about her experience, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the ExecMBA podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Caroline Holt. Caroline, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Brett. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you as well. How's everything going?
It's good. Right after the turn of the year, I'm in the sales world, so December and January are kind of like playoffs and Super Bowl, so not dissimilar from all the college bowl games and everything. So it's a little bit of a busy time, but I'm very happy to be here with you.
Well, you're in your final semester as an executive MBA student. How's that feel?
Well, first, it's the first time you've talked about semesters, so I'm in my last two quarters. So yes, I just actually finished J-term this week, handed in my last paper for that, which if you have the opportunity to take marketing leadership with Kim Whitler, you should absolutely do that. But it's this really bittersweet moment, actually. I'm like excited to have that degree and to walk for final exercises, but really sad too. It's just been such an amazing experience.
Are there any classes you're looking forward to as you kind of finish up these final couple quarters?
Yes. In fact, I asked Melissa if I could take more classes than I'm allowed to, which she gave me some. I think I might audit them, but there's a lot that I still want to take. So I'm starting entrepreneurial finance this week, which I'm pretty excited about, even though I am not a quant mind. I'm going to work on an independent study actually and helping create a sales elective, which I think is a missing piece in our entrepreneurship and even marketing. I would love it in the core, but I don't know if I'll be able to do that. I just took M&A, which I was really excited about. Disruptive strategy is coming up, which I'm excited about. So I kind of tend to gravitate a little bit more to the leadership and entrepreneurship classes. But I think the one that I'm most excited about is kind of a healthcare entrepreneurship class. It's new solutions in healthcare. And I came to Darden to work on a little pet entrepreneurial project in the healthcare space. So I'm excited about that. I think it ends with like a Shark Tank-esque pitch. So that's both incredibly daunting and kind of exciting.
That's great. Yeah, you mentioned taking a J-term elective with Kim Whitler in the marketing area. How did you decide you wanted to take a January term class?
I have this bizarre need to fit as much into these 21 months as I possibly can. And my background is in sales and marketing. And so I don't feel like I need as much of that curriculum from a growth and development perspective, but I was really excited to do that program. I work closely with marketing as part of my role, but really understanding marketing leadership from the marketing side I hadn't done before. Sales is a channel, so we work closely with marketing, but it tends to be pretty distinct in the B2B world. So I was excited to do that. And Kim doesn't teach any other classes. And so with the MBAs, at least for now. And so I was excited to get some time with her. And it was absolutely outstanding. She had some really great speakers. We covered a lot of terrain really quickly. It's kind of fun to knock out 1.5 credits in a week, and then be on to the next.
Yeah, January term, for folks who are not familiar with what this is, it's a 10-day term between the fall and spring semester where typically in the first year of the program, students do a course called the Professional Advancement course. And the second year of the Executive MBA program, students have the opportunity to take short and intensive electives. There were a number of people, I think, who went down to Charlottesville to take CEO leadership in the 21st century. And I know Kim has offered her marketing class, and there may be another class or two that's offered, but not uncommon to hear Executive MBA students do more than what's required for graduation. You do run into people, I think we've had some folks here on the podcast who have taken 66, 67 credits or so, and currently only 60 are required for graduation. And you can do that in the Executive MBA program and no additional charges, which is kind of cool.
Really cool. Yeah, I did learn this past quarter that if the class is not full and the professor signs off on it, you can even audit it. So something that might be otherwise kind of daunting, you might dip a toe in as an elective.
Well, Caroline, thank you so much for taking some time and coming on the podcast. Before we get too much further into our conversation, tell us a little bit more about you. Obviously, we know a little bit about you. We know that you work in sales, but and have maybe some entrepreneurial interests. But tell us a little bit more about you and your background.
Absolutely. So my name is Caroline Holt. I just turned 40. No, I didn't. I just turned 50. Wouldn't that be great? I just turned 50 actually on a global residency in Argentina in October. I was an accidental salesperson. So I started on the product side of my business and moved into sales started as a business development rep, kind of getting my foot in the door for salespeople. And then I myself became a salesperson, worked on a number of product launches. I was working for a company called CEB or Corporate Executive Board, which is now part of Gartner. So I was there for the first 10 years of my career. And the last 3, 4 years of that, I was building sales training and operations internally. And then I left there to start my own consulting business in 2007, 2008, which is incredible timing, if anybody remembers what was happening at that time. But I've had this business since then. I've gone back in house for a few executive and senior leadership roles. So largely leading the teams that either create or reduce friction in the sales process for salespeople, which is a lot of what I do in my consulting life as well. So I have a small team. I have a boutique consulting business. I help companies really unstick sales processes. I help primarily private equity backed, some venture, but private equity backed businesses between usually about 75 million and $500 million create scalable go-to-market strategies. So sometimes that's training, sometimes that's talent, sometimes it's the tools and technology that supports the sales people. And a lot of times that's coaching both the chief revenue officer and their sales leaders and sales team members. So it's pretty fun. I love it.
How did you decide you wanted to launch your own venture to run your own business?
Well, there is what I tell people. There's what really happened. I had a 2.5-year-old who, as it turns out, is autistic. But I didn't know that at the time. I just knew I had a child who had a lot of needs. And our president had just been fired, who I had been working with closely. I'd been, let's say, reassigned. And I knew that the organization was going to go through a pretty dramatic amount of change. I had been there for 10 years at that point. I was kind of ready to do something else. And so I left first to be home full time. And that was about 3 months. And then I started getting phone calls from people that I worked with previously saying, are you really not working? Or would you want to get into something? And so I started doing some project-based work for a few former colleagues. Then I started getting referred to other folks. So I kind of started the business accidentally, which in some ways is, I think, something that I have done throughout my career. Instead of constantly planning of what I'm doing next and having this 4 or 5 year plan, I'm really pretty good at seeing opportunities that are in front of me and kind of following them until they're not working out so well, or I need to pivot in some way. And I've actually found a Darden that effectual entrepreneurship, as Sarah refers to it, is pretty common for entrepreneurs. So whether kind of entrepreneurial ventures internally or entrepreneurial ventures, when you're off working on your own, that ability to kind of see what is influencing your path and who is influencing your path and really capitalizing on that has been my signature. So I've been doing this for a long time, but it's also my consulting business has iterated over time as my family and my team and other things have ebbed and flowed.
You mentioned starting this venture in around '07, '08, challenging time to start out on your own. And here you are now. Like, what are some of the things that you feel like you've learned over the course of this time running your own business?
Get a good accountant and bookkeeper and legal set up early. Don't ever trust that a contract is going to come until you've actually got it in hand. So don't start doing work until you actually have a contract executed, even and particularly if it's a friend. I would say mostly, though, that entrepreneurship is actually less risky, particularly right now, than working for other people because you're in control of your own destiny. And so I think I would have earlier in my career thought of entrepreneurship as being something that was really scary and risky. But I think if you invest in yourself and you recognize that you are probably better suited to be able to create your own destiny than kind of keeping that in the hands of somebody else that you're working for, is tremendously empowering. Um, I have also learned that talent is probably the most critical part of your ability to be successful. So you can only scale yourself so much. And so having people that you trust to do the right thing when you're not there is very different than hiring somebody who has very, very specific expertise in a particular area or being responsible for every component part. As you scale, you just can't be every place and you can't be everything to everyone. And so people that you hire who have the skill set that you need but are highly coachable and you trust, and can give feedback to when things don't go well and it doesn't, blow up. I think that's probably the difference between really being highly effective as a business owner and leader, and being a really good solo practitioner.
Is it hard making that transition from you being the person who does everything to having these other folks, take on roles and responsibilities for you?
As a
Entrepreneur?
professed control freak, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think it really is. I mean, it's a different type of management as well, right? I started doing projects for people who knew what I was good at, and it's my brand, it's my name. And so trusting that to other people is really hard. But I think if you hire great people who you coach and teach to what is really important for you and your brand, they will do the right thing when you are not around. And if they don't, that's a great learning opportunity for both of you. That certainly has happened as well. But if you don't talk about it, you sweep it under the rug, you fire them immediately, whatever, that doesn't actually help them or you do what you want to do.
Well, I'm curious, Caroline, how did you decide that you wanted to pursue an MBA?
Well, in roughly 1998, 99, I think, I was working for CEB, and we were actually called the advisory board at the time. We had this program because we hired 22-year-olds who worked on average 22 months, and we paid them on average $22,000 a year. And our founder, David Bradley, had this idea that we needed what he called an AM MBA program. So for these liberal arts kids who were not likely to be at the organization for a long time, he created this program, or in collaboration with his executive team, that was very much in the spirit of Darden case management. So over the course of a number of weeks, we kind of walked around the executive suite, used a number of case studies that are Darden, or I think they were all Darden, but maybe there was at least one HBS case study. And so we learned business through this incredibly daunting prep process, people getting cold called. It was the most exhausting and exciting few weeks of my early career. And I came home and said, I don't know how much of that I retained, but I want to do that. When I go to business school, that's what I want to do. And so I wound up, starting to take the GMAT and start to apply to Darden back in my mid-20s. But CEB was growing between 20 and 40% a year, and I was a big part of that. And my dad's a professor, and he said, why would you leave this environment and go work and be in a classroom for 2 years? You're not going to get more than you are from a learning perspective from that experience. And so I didn't go to business school at the time. And then in my 30s or 40s, I started thinking, maybe this is, I'm kind of beyond the time where I would do a residential program. I've got kids. I don't, I can't and don't want to do this. And then as I got closer to 50, which is a very powerful milestone, I also, there are a few things. So I am an expert in sales. And most of what I know about business is influenced either by being an entrepreneur or the way that functional area affects sales. So I felt like I had some blind spots in terms of, or maybe not even blind spots, but some opportunity for growth in terms of really having a full general management perspective. And that's for the benefit of my clients and myself as a business owner. And then the second is I have this little healthcare technology company. I'm kind of a professional patient in my spare time. And records management for somebody who has complex medical issues is really challenging in the environment that we lived in today. You might be lucky enough to have all of your medical records live in Epic, but for most people, they don't. For many years have lived in a lot of first paper file cabinets behind doctor doors, now electronic file cabinets. They don't talk to each other. They're very difficult to share information, access information. And so I think there's a better way. So I've been playing around with this with my best friend from college. And so I thought Darden would be the perfect place to apply, business management principles and entrepreneurship to this company that I'm kind of working on off the side of my desk. For why Darden specifically? So I actually, in addition to it being kind of fun that in my 20s I wanted to go to Darden, I went through a full experience looking at who else was out there. When I really looked at entrepreneurship programs and this kind of learning lab incubation that we have both in entrepreneurship, but then even just in any of the core curriculum, it just blew everything out of the water. And what I call the Brett Twitty effect. Brett, there's no way that the influence that you had in the recruiting and admissions process was really profound in helping me identify and unlock things that were going to be uniquely beneficial to me and coming to Darden. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. It's nice of you to say that, Carolina. I'm curious about the entrepreneurial resources that you saw at Darden and what appealed to you. I mean, at Darden, sort of this multi-pronged approach to entrepreneurship. You have the curricular, you have a co-curricular, you have purely extracurricular. It's kind of a choose your own adventure. What appealed to you about the entrepreneurial resources at Darden?
Sure. So the day that I came happened to be the kickoff of what we call EL, which is experiential learning, which all students do, and you can take different paths for. So there's a climber path, there's a kind of an enhancement path, there's an entrepreneurial path. So professional development just kind of depends on what you're trying to do. And I think it's four different sections over the course of your 2 years. I've just completed it a couple weeks ago, but one of those paths is entrepreneurship. And so the day that I was there, I got to see, because you put me in the right classroom at the right time, I got to understand what that entrepreneurial experiential learning path looked like, which was a combination of understanding what sort of content was available, speakers, actually, doing some professional development and coaching work to prepare me as an entrepreneur on some of the skills that I felt like I really needed to work on. So that was really exciting to me. From a curriculum perspective, a lot of schools have an entrepreneurship class here and there. We literally have the person who wrote the book on effectual entrepreneurship on our staff or on our faculty, which is really incredible. And so that was a really interesting draw for me. I think the orientation towards the alumni here is far and away what makes Darden stand out in my mind. So looking particularly at executive MBA programs, there are a number of really strong programs out there. But the level that the alumni leans in here in a very unpretentious, supportive, yeah, I'll absolutely hop on a call with you to talk about this, whether you're going through the interviewing process as a prospective candidate or once you're here. It's just, a lot of people go to business school for the network, and I didn't really feel like that was something that I was looking for in any business school, because I felt like I had a pretty strong network from my own background. That has blown me away. So that was I think, unanticipated, very happy accident with Darden. I saw a little bit of that as I was looking at different schools. I had 3 people who, before I had even accepted at Darden, who were entrepreneurs who you initially put me in contact with, which started a kind of a domino effect of, oh, you should talk to this person. Just seeing that as part of my admissions process made it pretty clear that a big part of what I would benefit from in the entrepreneurship program here would be the incredible alumni and networking connections that I could make inside and outside the classroom.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm always struck. This past weekend was the kind of career summit, career exploration day that coincides with the conclusion of the professional advancement course, which means there's like 50, 60 plus alums who come back to sit on panels. And my LinkedIn feed is always full of people talking about how great it is to be back and how much they enjoyed speaking with the current students. And I think we hopefully will have some news coverage or a blog post or something coming out about this day. Because I mean, this is just one example in one course, but the fact that you can get so many people to come back and just take time out of their Saturday to connect with our executive MBA and part-time MBA students, I think is a real testament to the strength of the network.
100%. Yeah.
I'm curious, Caroline, how did you settle on the executive MBA program? You mentioned at another point in your life you thought about full-time MBA. What led you to say executive MBA was the right place for you?
Well, it wasn't you, Brett, because I asked you specifically what I should do, and you told me I needed to explore it on my own. So, well, to be quite honest, I was pretty daunted by the executive MBA program. I do run a business. I have three teenagers. I sometimes try and be a good wife. The idea of doing three classes at a time, every 8 to 10 weeks, turning that over for 21 months, spending one calendar weekend a month away from my family, that just all felt really hard. And I kept asking you, like, how do people do that? And you kept saying, they just do. And it was like this weird kind of trust me, it just, you'll make it work. And I just really couldn't get over that. And so I was applying to the part-time program and the EMBA program. And you said, I just think you should check it out. And you're very kind. I'm not going to force you to do anything way. But I went to a part-time class, which was phenomenal. And I went to an EMBA class, which was phenomenal. But the difference in conversation was pretty dramatic for me. So as an exec and as a leader, I saw more of my cohort, my peer group in that EMBA program. But I think it felt like somehow if all of these people can figure out how to make this work, I probably can too. And so that was ultimately, the classes themselves, I don't think are probably very different. I did also find that for my schedule, having exclusively Zoom classes during the week and then the week leading up to a OGR, which is an on-grounds residency weekend, that there would be no classes, that felt actually less daunting, just to be able to kind of X off X number of weekends per month or quarter, felt a little bit more manageable actually than the idea that I would have to be in Roslyn during the week, 3 hours, 4 hours at a time. That just actually felt a little bit less manageable, even though it was over a longer duration.
Yeah, I appreciate your making the point about visiting classes because we've had a number of people who kind of originally started out with the part-time MBA program as being the first program they thought of and then ended up matriculating in the executive MBA program. And the class visit really helps them understand the difference between the two populations. Part-time MBA students here at Darden tend to be an earlier career student on average, maybe have somewhere around 5 to 6 years of work experience. Executive MBA, you don't have to be an executive to do this program, but the students typically have somewhere around maybe 12, 13, 14 years of work experience on average. So you're getting a different level of conversation typically in the executive MBA classroom. And I think as admissions folks, we want you to find your peer group where you're going to have more people who are at a similar point in their career, wrestled with similar things to what you've wrestled with over the course of your career. And I think the class visit really makes that vivid for people. One of the things you mentioned, Caroline, is like this time management component. Like, how are you going to make all this work? And I will say, from the admission standpoint, it's really hard to tell students exactly how this is going to look in their life because everybody's situation is different. Everybody's got different things on their plate. Some of our students have families. Some of our students are single people, but they still have other commitments they're balancing. And so, how did you make it all work? How did you figure out your adjustment to life as a working professional student?
I mean, if you talk to my family, they might say that I haven't figured it out yet. But I think that a few things. So one, because of the work I do, actually one of my recommendations was from one of my clients. And so the first thing I've done is I have shared with people that I'm going through this journey. And so what that means for them, right? Expectation setting is a big part of it. So that's expectation setting kind of after the fact in terms of not being available on Fridays, or my friends know that during the week, I'm just not really accessible on a weeknight to do things, which means that I miss out on things. But, that was the commitment that I made. But I think before that, I had I had to have really serious conversations with my family because my husband in particular was going to have to pick up some things that I might have historically done. Or I might not be as accessible, or I might not be able to travel at these critical junction points our class seems to have every 3-day weekend as a kind of marked off as an OGR weekend. I don't know how that happened, but that's, kind of different, right? So my kids are two of my 3 kids are in high school. And so sometimes we only have 3-day weekends to do things with. And so we've had to rethink some of that. I will say that teenagers actually appreciate that I'm less available to them at times. But so I think really having those conversations beforehand is really important. Setting expectations while you're there and recognizing that some stuff isn't going to get done. So I think for some of my peer group in the EMBA program, they feel like they would like to go deeper in some of the content areas than we're able to, given how rapidly we move through some of the curriculum. And so for me, I wanted the broader brushstrokes. It might be that for other people that more in depth or being able to only focus on 2 classes at a time or doing a full, residential program in Charlottesville where really you are eating, sleeping, breathing, MBA program full time. That might be, that might tell you that that's a different fit. But I will say the other way that I've made it all work is I have a lot of Virginia and Darden gear, which makes it much easier to have to worry about what I'm wearing on any given day, as long as I'm not doing a podcast or meeting with a client or something. And I've got a few things in my office that I just pull on and pop on. I think you realize where you can make sacrifices. I will say as well that the first year feels very different than the second year. So the first year, I am not going to lie, it was one of the most amazing and hardest things I have ever done. And you have to recognize that it's going to be really hard the first year. It is not, you are not going to have a lot of time. You're not going to have weekends to be able to go to brunch with people. And that's just the focus that you have, because that's the thing you're doing at that moment. But that does get better. It does get easier, particularly as the curriculum better aligns with what you might be interested in. So everybody's going to find, the 3 classes that they take at any given time, 1 to 2 of them are going to really be in their wheelhouse for content areas that they can excel in. And 1 is going to feel really hard. Sometimes 2 is going to feel really hard. And so I think that if you can kind of get that mindset of core is going to be really challenging. It's going to teach me not only how to be a student and be in the classroom, how to connect with my peers. You get a lot of constructive criticism from, faculty and peers through that case approach, which a lot of people have never really gotten in their career, particularly ones in the last 5 years who a lot of the work that we do is virtual. It's a huge learning opportunity, not just academically, but also professionally, and how you engage in learning teams, how you set and reset expectations as people have different, things come up in their work and personal lives. So I think a lot of it comes down to communication, whether it's communication with your family, whatever your work environment is, and the people at Darden who make that experience exceptional. But I will say it is an exceptional experience, and it is well worth figuring out how to make it all work. And if you feel like you're doing it right the whole time, you're probably doing it wrong. But you will absolutely feel like it is a giant ass kicking in the best way.
Well, the first year, you're right. It's core curriculum. You don't get to pick your classes. I think it's fair to say, you're just talking with students here on the podcast, some classes are a bit more interesting than others, just by virtue of what you come to business school kind of focused on. But you do get this really broad foundation that you can build upon through the electives. And I think you're right. When you get to the second year, the students kind of figured it out a little bit more. There's some schedule flexibility too in the second year. Electives can be on different evenings for their distance class component. Schedule during the weekend residency can also vary a bit depending upon the electives that you're taking. And you've gotten ahead on your credits, you may be able to take less than 3 classes in a particular quarter. There's more flexibility than people might realize with lockstep and cohort-based program, which is what the Executive MBA is at a broad level. But when you start to dig in, particularly on that second year, there's more flexibility. Have you been able to take advantage of that?
I have. So I unfortunately have a child right now who's got some pretty serious medical issues. And so even just sending a note to say to Aaron Colwell to say, hey, I've got some stuff going on in the background right now. The support that I got right away from professors to be more flexible and some other things have just been really incredible. I mentioned earlier that I audited a class, which was really helpful because it allowed me to engage in the class, but not be focused on taking the quizzes and final exam. So I was able to actually get some good content from it. This independent study that I'm going to be doing is on my timetable, and then working with a professor on that as I create deliverables. This quarter, well, the last 2 quarters, I've taken a part-time class, so that's been Wednesday nights from 6 to 9:15. That is a long, Zoom, but it is that's been really great to kind of be able to plan around that. And in fact, last quarter I only had classes on Saturday and Sunday afternoons, which was amazing. Um, I have taken a hybrid class, which was a couple of Zoom classes and then taking some self-paced content online. So I think it's been really the electives not only are aligned with things that I'm really interested in, but I also have been able to create more of that flexibility. I also know that if you are a GEMBA, so the Global Executive MBA program, I've added, I'm doing 3 global residencies, so that has added additional courses to my schedule, which has been challenging at sometimes when we've had deliverables, but has also meant that I have more flexibility. So I do know a number of Gembas and other students who have cut back to 2 classes at a time for their electives period so that they could either be focusing more on work or family. And so I've really appreciated that piece of it as well. You can take more if you want to, you can take less if you are on track to graduate.
Yeah, what's it been like traveling multiple times? You mentioned you had a birthday on the Argentina Global Residency. What have those global residencies been like?
Well, having your 50th birthday on a global residency is pretty much second to none. But I would say so. So the global residency was actually one of the things that the expectation that you do a global residency as part of the MBA experience was something that really attracted me to Darden. But I didn't want to do more than one. And so I went to India. I had a lot of options. You bid on where you want to go. As somebody who's largely worked in the technology sector, India was a cool draw for me, and also a place I didn't necessarily think that I would get my family over to for vacation. That experience was absolutely transformative. There is no way that I could have replicated that trip on my own. And certainly not for $5,000. It was, plus travel, but that was an exceptional experience with faculty that really curated an experience that was second to none. And so a number of us came back from that first global residency and signed up for as many global residencies after that as possible. So while I did not come in as a global executive MBA student, I am doing 3 of the 4 global residency opportunities. So first was India. I went to Argentina this fall, and I'll be going to Vietnam in the spring. And I think that combination of culture and academics, let's say light academics, and the ability to really connect with global leaders, hear global perspective, see what's happening in our country as it's perceived by other countries and their leaders is pretty profound.
You mentioned India and Argentina. Is there one other location there in the mix that you
Vietnam.
visited? Vietnam.
Yeah, Vietnam is going to be in March.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what you're going to do in Vietnam? Is a little bit too early to say.
Well, we learned with our first global residency, which was kind of all new, that we kind of learned things as we went. So this time, where some of us this is old hat at this point. So we have organized a foodie tour in Hanoi. We're going to Ha Long Bay. We are doing a number of things that the program will set up for us, but we've also got, we've coordinated flights. So a number of us are traveling together, traveling in advance, traveling afterwards. So we've kind of figured it out at this point, how to really optimize these trips. But that's also been really cool because it's kind of, when we stay at the Le Meridien, which I call Le Dorme. Which I will say, I think, don't underestimate the power of what's happening outside the classroom. And so I think that the global residency is a great example of that, but staying as much as you can at school, not just treating classes as classes where you're coming in and coming out, is a critical part of the program. And so a global residency is just that, those weekends, but really amped up.
Yeah, it's nice to get out of your everyday environment, be halfway around the world with the 20, 25, 30 classmates. There is a very special special kind of bonding that happens as part of the global residency experience. One of the things you mentioned earlier conversation is you had some exposure to the case method through your time at CEB. It was something that really resonated with you. Obviously, you're here as a Darden student. How do you explain the case method to people who don't know as much about it? Because it is one of these things that, like, even the name doesn't reveal that much about what you'll actually be doing in class.
Yeah, we need our marketing team to kind of rebrand that a little bit. So one of the things, so Kim Whitler, I mentioned earlier, she just did the J-term class. The way that she described it the first night of class, I thought was really powerful. So she talked about it as like this learning lab that you get every time you walk into a classroom. So I think I was actually really daunted by the case method, even though I did do it as a student. Partially because of that, right? This idea that you read a case that you think you sort of absorb and understand some of the key insights from, and then you meet with a team of people in your learning team, and they've gotten different things out of it, and you start to think, well, was I just not reading it right? Like what, how come I can't process this in the same way? Are there questions that you can't answer as part of the prep? And then you go into the classroom and other people have come up with entirely different things. And clearly the professor has an idea of what you want to cover. It feels kind of overwhelming. But I think the way that I would frame it is that you can go to business school and learn what other people have done that's been successful, or you can come to business school, read about something that has happened and tease out your perspective on that, come in with a point of view, come in prepared to talk about it, and you will learn so much in that classroom from other people. Do you retain and absorb all of it? No. Do you sometimes feel like you're just hanging on? Yes. Do you go into an exam feeling like I am going to fail out of this school? Yes. And you know what? You will be amazed at how quickly you actually absorb and retain and start to connect, and even connect from quarter to quarter. The amount, I don't know that I could say that every class I've had something that has been immediately applicable to my day job, but many classes I have. So things even within a couple months of having spoken about them in the classroom have been relevant. Or, we have a bazillion WhatsApp chats that are going on with our EMBA group all the time. And people are constantly posting about something that happened to them at work or something that they're sharing. And it really is quite amazing how we draw on some of these experiences and conversations in our daily life.
Well, Caroline, I'm curious, have there been any clubs or organizations or anything you've been involved with outside of the classroom? You mentioned like the importance of not just seeing the executive MBA program as just class. Like there's this broader sort of experiential aspect to your time as an executive MBA student. Anything outside the classroom that's taken up your time?
I don't have a lot of extracurriculars that I do with Darden, but there are two that I have been deeply invested in. So one is I work with the Entrepreneurship and Venture Capital Club, and that has largely been exposure to Cav Angels, which is a angel investing team. You can actually participate as a student and kind of be part of the process, or as an investor. And then I have taken advantage of as many of the events in DC and even some in Charlottesville as I can. So we've had, you mentioned earlier, the professional development panels. We've had that sort of thing that is for all students, but then we've also had DC Tech Connect. We've had venture capital leadership sessions. We've had speakers, the Friday Night Live, which I didn't even know was a thing that everybody could go to. I've gone to Friday Night Lives for other programs to meet and hear from speakers or panelists. So it's been more of that, really taking advantage of a lot of what the as a student life has to offer. But I haven't. And then there is a women's kind of Forte Fellows previously, but women's group. We have a pretty active WhatsApp chat. And so I do a lot with that group as well.
Yeah, we always tell prospective students, you can meet 3 or 4 executive MBA students, and the range of answers you would get to how involved are you with clubs or organizations or with things outside the classroom, definitely more varied than what you typically see from, say, a full-time MBA student population, where that's really a big component of their experience. And the reason for that is people just have a lot of different commitments as you're doing a work and professional program. Some students have more time for that sort of thing than others, and for other people, it's a big priority for them coming into the experience. And other people, it's maybe not their number one priority. Maybe they're focused on a career transition or something else, and you only have so much time to spend here. And so you have to make some tough calls as to where you want to put your time and attention.
Well, there's certainly no shortage of places that you could put your time and attention. I think that's another piece that is, if you look at some of the other programs, which I did pretty closely, there most executive MBA programs, it is the weekends that you're there. That is where all of the activity happens. And I will say that between when I was accepted and when I started, the number of programs for getting to know my peers, getting to understand and appreciate what the Darden learning experience was going to be. We called it Darden Camp, but it was Darden before Darden. The social activities that you organized. I asked for some of those at other schools, and they'd say, "Oh, well, we'll see you when you come the first weekend," right? And I think that is just I mentioned earlier the importance of the outside the classroom activities. I think that those are underestimated and in some ways far more critical to the Darden experience than I ever would have known.
Well, I'm curious, you mentioned your Vietnam global residency. We talked about some of your electives. What else are you looking forward to in the months to come? Your time here as a Darden student is limited. You've only got another
Yeah.
couple quarters.
I'm looking forward to my last couple of on grounds. They are always really fun. We have prom this weekend, which I didn't think I would want to go to prom. We've got a Darden prom that was done by our student association. So Christian Campbell has been the mastermind behind that. So I'm looking forward to that, kind of being out of the classroom and doing something fun. We tend to do a lot of social activities on grounds weekends. But I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to graduation in the spring, and which happens to coincide, I guess, with every EVA graduation. So it'll be a really busy and fun weekend. I am looking forward to some of my classes. I'm looking forward to doing a little bit of pitch work for my entrepreneurship classes. Last year, I had the opportunity. I found out about a pitch off through the Venture Capital Club, and my business partner and I took third overall out of 84 globally. So that was pretty cool. So hopefully there's at least another one of those in my future. But if I think about it too much, it'll feel overwhelming and exhausting. So mostly I'm just looking forward to kind of eking out the last of my couple months of Darden. Well, 5 months, I guess, of Darden. But it feels sad that it's coming to an end.
Caroline, I'm curious, do you have any advice for prospective students listening to this podcast, thinking about their own MBA journey?
First, I would say do it. Whatever your reservations are, you won't know until you get in there. And we have had students who've come and for work reasons or other things, they've needed to take a pause. In fact, we have at least one who's joined our class who had taken a pause the year before. And I think, my understanding from those people is that Darden has been amazing at, kind of trying to help make it work and then get you back. But for most of us, it's just like this incredible journey. And so I would say do it. That would be my best advice. And then my second best advice is don't worry what your grades are. This is not about the grades. It's about the experiences. And so if you're coming to focus on the academics and the curriculum, you can do that at a lot of places. And Darden is, I would say, second to none. But for an EMBA student, come to get the holistic experience, figure out how to make do a little less showering and a little bit more time with your peers, and really, really recognize that some of the outside the classroom work is as, if not more important than anything that you're going to get in the classroom. But the stuff in the classroom is pretty great too.
Yeah, I appreciate that point. We always stress with prospective students, you should be thinking about this as a full experience. Like even as a work professional student, you can still get to know your classmates, be fully engaged and do clubs and organizations, all these kinds of things. It's really important to be very clear about what your priorities are and putting your time and attention towards those things. So Caroline, thank you so much for your time. It's great catching up with you and excited for you and your classmates as you head towards graduation. It'll be here before you know it.
Thank you. Brett, you have been such an influential person in me getting here, and I really, really appreciate everything that you do for Dart. So thank you so much. I'm
Yeah.
confident that you bleed orange when you you got a cut.
Well, thank you, Caroline. It's great to catch up with you.
Great to see you. Thanks so much, Brett.
And that was my conversation with Caroline Holt, a second-year student in our Executive MBA class of 2026. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's EXEC, MBA at darden.virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.